Yeah, also a nice thing to go along with this, I think anyway, is it's called the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. Wheel of Sharp Weapons, and actually there's quite a big book with a commentary by Gishi Sopa, but otherwise the Wheel of Sharp Weapons is a little book, and it's, I don't know, about, well, it's a bunch of verses that talks about the different results following from different types of karma. And I think I seem to remember that the author is quite, around the time of Lama Atisha, and he sort of gleaned all this from sutras. So that's quite, I always found that quite helpful, actually. So the thing is that, all of this about karma, really what it comes down to is it's cause and effect, isn't it? I mean, it's a bit like if you really take cause and effect seriously, in other words, if you come to the conclusion, yeah, actually, maybe up until now, I never really thought about it, but if something happens, there have to be causes for it to happen. Things don't just happen at random. So you start thinking like that, and then you start applying that to your own life, I suppose. I mean, everything, that happens to you and everything you do and so on, you start thinking that, well, that must also be the same for me. So then the idea of karma starts to make sense, because karma is just a way of saying that, what happens to you is mainly because of what you've done in the past. What you're doing now is what shapes your future thing. Karma isn't lost. The results of karma aren't lost, and things like that. So that's sort of like something you work out for yourself, almost like just, it's like it's the only thing that really makes sense. Try and make sense of the world. And then even now, well, we've looked at a little bit at the different types of karma, the destructive karma, sometimes called non-virtuous, sometimes called bad karma, non-virtuous karma, destructive karma. What's the other one? Unskillful karma. Different ways of putting the same thing, really. But now what we're going to be looking more at is the results, and some of the results make sense. Some of them it's like, well, yeah, okay, but you wouldn't really, you wouldn't guess that that's the kind of result that would follow from such and such an action. It doesn't, sort of like, sometimes not particularly intuitive. I mean, like if you say that one of the results of killing is that that later on in a future life, when you're born as a human again, then to have a short life, I mean, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? There's a few things like that, but otherwise, you're sort of taking somebody's word for it, and whose word you're taking from it is, I mean, since any Buddhist teaching needs to trace back to, well, and it's true, actually, what the Buddha said about things that we can check using, reasoning, common sense kind of thing. That's all pretty amazing. He seems to have been pretty amazing. So we just make come to the conclusion that, well, I think that this is somebody I can trust on things that I can't check up using common sense and so on as well. So that's why it's a mixture of somehow faith in the Buddha and also common sense again, in a way. What I mean is, you see, what they talk about is coming to reaching kind of like certainty about karma and its results through reading various accounts which derive from the sutras, actually, accounts of what happened to people being traced back to what they did maybe many lifetimes before. And so then you start, number one is you start getting into not just the idea that generally good things happen to good people, or which is maybe not maybe that's not not the point. When you do good, something good's going to happen, because sometimes bad things happen to good people, right? So you can't just say good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. I mean, you know, in a way there's some truth of that, but of course, yeah, good and bad things happen to good people, and good and bad things happen to bad people. But if you do good, something good's going to happen. If you do something bad, something bad's going to happen. But then when you start going into these different stories about like you come across in the Jataka stories, you know, the stories of the previous lives of the Buddha, and also the kind of thing that you find in that Wheel of Sharp Weapons. When this happens, it's because you did this, and so it's like a wheel of sharp weapons, like a boomerang coming back to hit you. You know, you did that, now it's come back to you, that kind of thing. So then you start, it's like your mind begins to wake up to the fact that, yeah, it's not just that good things are good. Good things happen because of having done good things. There's something very specific about it. It's not just in general something good is going to happen. It's like, but actually, even if we can't see it for ourselves, actually specific actions lead to specific results. You really get an idea of that in the Jataka stories. Or there's that book that's been translated as something, let's see, the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish. That's also the same, you know. It's not called Jataka stories, but it's stories from previous lives of the Buddha as a bodhisattva on the path, and that kind of thing. And the thing is, you see, you're sort of looking at the idea that, yeah, so this kind of thing happened. You know, the Buddha saw this in while he was, you know, in the world, and people asked him, well, this person who's sort of suffering in such a way or having such a good life and so on, what did they do to make that happen? And the Buddha explains very precisely, you know, like in such and such a lifetime, at such and such a time, and so on, they did this, and that's why this happened to them. And you start thinking, yeah, that there has to be, you know, if something good is happening to this person, they must have done something. It can't have been just general. So that's the idea that you're getting from the Buddha. It's not just like in general the person must have done something good, but specifically they did this. Specifically, that result followed. It's a bit like there was a time, I don't know if it was something, it was throughout his life, Lama Rinpoche, but I know that there was a period when I became aware, you know, he would sort of like to walk around a flower garden and just, it was a bit difficult to fathom in a way, but it was like the results are so precise, you know, like there's just this color of flower, just this shape of the petals and so on, coming precisely from, well, who knows what cause. He didn't go as far as to say, you know, this is because of this, but it's very precise. is very precise. It's not just a general thing. It's very precise. And so you start thinking, well, yeah, this must have had causes, and the causes must have been specific. And so then you start thinking, well, yeah, also then there's no way of explaining what's happening to me except in terms of what I know, of course, is that if something bad happened, I must have done something bad. If something good's happened, I must have done something good. But there must be something very precise about that. And you start just feeling that kind of certainty. Yeah. There's good things lead to good results, bad things lead to bad results, and also in a very precise and very specific way, even if you can't see that. So that's mainly the thing that you can't see, right? If you do something wrong in this life and you don't purify it, you got no idea what's going to happen as a result. But if it was something bad, then you know that something bad is going to happen. If it's something good, you know that something's good and good is going to happen. You don't know exactly what it's going to be, but you know it is going to be very precise, not just sort of like some random good thing is going to happen to you, some random bad thing is going to happen to you. You see what I mean? Okay, so anyway, that's one good thing about reading the the Jataka stories. There's a very nice one that I was reading one time during retreat. Can't remember what it's called now. I think it's published by, there's a whole bunch of books that were published by the Tatantukus group in Berkeley. One of them, I can't remember the name now. Very nice though. Something blades of something or other, not blades of grass, blades of something or other, something like that. Anyway, I'll look it up, maybe. Try and find out. But anyway, then there's the Jataka stories and the Sutra of the Wise and Foolish. Yeah. And the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. Okay, so maybe we should start with some refuge and bodhicitta, as usual. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I'll spend a few minutes thinking about that, as a refuge, journey to bodhicitta, especially, focusing on great compassion. The more great compassion, the more bodhicitta. Strong bodhicitta comes from strong, great compassion. Okay, so we have gone through the 10 non-virtues as well as the factors that are involved in that come into play that would make the karma, stronger or not so strong. I'm trying to say. Okay, so now it's talking about the effects. This is pretty straightforward. I'm going to read anyway. So it says there are three results. So yeah, the fully ripened effect, namingito. Then the effect concordant with the cause, gutungito, and then the dominant or environmental effect, daje. Yeah, it's usually called, most people call it the environmental effect, because when you look at the explanations, it always seems to be to do with the environment. So results that sort of like you see outside in the world that you're living in, rather than your own body and so on. It affects you, of course, but anyway, you'll see. But more literally, I think dominant effect. It's difficult, really. I've got no idea why it's called that dangje. But anyway, okay, so dominant or environmental effect. The so for the fully ripened effect, so this is always going to be what kind of birth any of those 10 actions will lead to. So what it says is, since each of the 10 paths of action depends on whether the basis, the 3 poisons, is small, intermediate, or great. Remember that, right? That was one of the things that dictates whether it's a strong karma or not. The ripened effect is also threefold. Then to elaborate on that, the levels of yogic practice, Sangha says that through each of the 10 great ones, a great act of killing and so on, you're born as a hell being. So that means like great because the attachment or the anger or the ignorance is very, very strong. It's difficult to imagine ignorance being very strong, isn't it? But I suppose if you think of ignorance in terms of believing that it's okay to kill in certain circumstances, you could have a very strong opinion about it, or not so strong. I mean, I'm just guessing, and certainly, in any case, it's not kind of like we're not talking about it like a very forceful, strong emotion, are we? With ignorance. And remember also, this is one point that came up during one of the previous classes, that if you talk about, like, you could have attachment being the motivating mental affliction leading you to kill, but that would be what of the causal motivation, and the motivation at the time, that would be the causal motivation, the one that sort of like gets you to doing it. But then at the actual time, there would have to be some anger somehow there. If it's what you might call a fully fledged or full-blown karma of killing. Of course, just killing an insect because it's landed on your, mosquito because it's landed on your arm, I mean, that would be different. You don't need a strong kind of emotion for that, do you? Anger, attachment, whatever. Anyway, let's keep going. So, hell being, through each of the 10 intermediate ones, you're born as a hungry ghost, and through each of the 10 small ones, you're born as an animal. That's general. So that's how it's usually explained, and that wouldn't be too surprising, because the way that it's normally explained in the Lamrim teachings, the worst is the hell realms, then the next worst is the of the three lower realms. The next worst would be being born as a predator, and then the one that's the least suffering of the three realms would be as an animal. But in the 10 Ground Sutra, it says the effects of the small and intermediate ones are said to be the other way around. What that means is that according to the 10 Ground Sutra, in a way, it's the same. It's saying, the worst result comes from the strongest of the three poisons. Then when they're middling, then the next worst, and then the least worst coming from the weakest motivating poisonous mind. It's just that in the 10 Ground Sutra, it thinks the worst would be haram, next would be animal, next would be preta. Preta is more fortunate than the animal. So now why is that? I have heard an explanation, which is that in the preta, there's more intelligence. There's more intelligence, particularly kind of intelligence, I'm guessing, actually, the intelligence that would allow you to think about future lives, which seems to be beyond animals. So from that point of view, okay. Then the effect concordant with the cause, often called the effect similar to the cause, same thing. Okay, so now usually, I'm a little bit surprised at this explanation. Usually, two types of effects similar to cause are distinguished. There's the action similar to cause, which is like your kind of what they say is you like killing. I like the idea of killing, something you like. So that would be what that would be. It's called the action similar to the cause. Action similar to the cause, yeah. So it doesn't mean killing, but you like killing, so then that's going to lead you to killing. Just a little bit of a distinction there. And then the experience similar to the cause, which would be from killing, you're killed, from stealing, you're stolen from, that kind of thing. But here it doesn't mention that, and as we'll see. Each of the 10 non-virtuous paths of action also gives rise to an effect concordant with the cause, so that even when you've left the lower rebirth, so in other words, from killing, let's say killing in a light where you're born as an animal. You might be born as an animal many, many, many times, even as a result of that one karma, that kind of thing can happen. But eventually, that karma runs out and you're born as a human being again. That's when the result similar to the cause is going to happen, and also the environmental result. So once you've left the lower rebirth and you've taken birth as a human being, your life will be short from killing. You'll lack wealth from stealing. Your partner will leave you from sexual misconduct. Yeah, you can imagine that might be even specifically from the adultery, which is part of the sexual misconduct. Then you will be slandered. That should be lying, right? Lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, and the idle gossip. So it should be in that order there. Let's see: slander from lying, separated from loved ones from divisive speech, from harsh speech, hearing unpleasant speech from others, and then from the senseless talk, idle gossip, others not listening to you. And then because of the three of the mind, having a lot of attachment, a lot of anger, a lot of confusion, respectively. Okay, then keep going. So then the environmental result, the dominant or environmental effect of killing. I don't think in the Tibetan, just by the way, it says it could be either. That's just a thing about English. Let me see. Nangido, Gudungido. Yeah. Dapoam. I Wongido. It does have two things in the Tibetan, but one of them I never heard of before. But anyway, okay, the dominant or it's just different names for the same thing anyway. The dominant or environmental effect of killing is that in the surrounding environment, food, drink, medicine, harvest, and the like will have little potency. So maybe makes sense because that means they're not going to have much power to support life. The environmental result of stealing is that there will be droughts, torrential rain, poor harvest, and so forth. The environmental result of sexual misconduct, there'll be so dirty, like some dirty environment, foul swamps, excessive filth, unpleasant odors, and so forth. Then the environmental effect of lying is that any work, whether in fields or boats and so on, will not succeed. The environmental result of the various species that the air will be bumpy and uneven, making it difficult to travel and so on. Environmental result of harsh speech is that the air will be full of logs, brambles, rocks, pebbles, I had to look this up. I've never seen this word before. Pot shards, bits of broken pot. Pot shards. Looks like pot shards, don't they? Pot shards. The environmental effect of idle talk is that the fruit trees will not bear fruit or will bear fruit out of season and so on. Environmental result of confidence is that everything excellent will deteriorate year by year, month by month, and day, and so forth. The environmental result of harmful intent is multitude of epidemics, injuries, infections, disputes, wars with enemy troops, and so on. Environmental result of wrong views is an environment where the best sources of provisions will be exhausted, and so on. So, not much to say about that, is there really? That's what it says. Then, now going on to the virtuous actions, the constructive actions. Okay. So first of all, identifying what's meant by the virtuous actions, which is basically going to be the opposite of the non-virtuous ones that I mentioned above, and their effects. Okay. So it says, these are the physical acts. So this is what these virtuous actions, this is what you want. If you want happiness, then this is what you have to do virtuous actions. These are the physical acts, first of all, the physical ones. Physical acts that, with the virtuous mind, cognizing the faults of killing. So it's I mean, I don't know why it doesn't seem to add to anything by saying it's a virtuous mind, but anyway, it's you understand the faults of killing. What are the faults? Just look at the results that follow. Recognize the faults of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. So you've seen the faults, then you correctly refrain from killing. So you refrain from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, and succeed in having refrained from them. So this is to be applied likewise to the four of speech and the three of the mind. The difference being that they're called actions of speech and actions of mind. Okay, so one thing that's a little bit surprising there, if you think back, remember, there is this talk about karma versus karmic paths. All 10 of them, with the non-virtuous ones, all 10 of them were karmic paths, but they're not all karma, because the last 3 are mental afflictions, klesha, and you can't have something which is both karma and klesha. But here it says they're all called karma, because remember, actions of speech is karma of speech, actions of mind is karma of mind. Okay, That's the way it's explained in the again in the levels of yogic practice. So I think, yeah, so when we look at the specific example of killing, this, what we've just read through, will actually make more sense, and we can read through again. So when you apply that to the path of action of avoiding killing, so not killing now, avoiding killing, the basis is another sentient being, just like in killing. The attitude is the wish to avoid it, is the wish to avoid it. In other words, to avoid killing, not to kill, the wish not to kill. The performance is to put effort into completely abstaining from killing. So, yeah, putting effort in restraining from it. So you get the idea that this is more being explained from the point of view of where you maybe have a bit of a, I don't know, like drawn towards killing, but you're stopping yourself, right? You're stopping yourself. I mean, according to the teaching on karma, thinking about the results, but there are other things as well. I mean, in terms of the karma, you know, there's the result of full maturation is what it called. Is that what he called it? The fully ripened effect. And there's the results in the cause and the environmental results. So you don't want any of those. So, you know, but also there are other reasons, deeper reasons. I remember clearly Kabji Chodin Rinpoche, late Lama, saying that, you know, on a deeper level, the reason to refrain from destructive actions is more from the harm that it does others. And you might think that, like, for example, in the case of killing, that would mean you're thinking, you know, of the harm that you're doing to that sentient being, and so you don't want to cause them harm. There's another way of looking at it, which is you're thinking to yourself, you know, like, so I'm trying to dedicate my life to others, all sentient beings. If I kill, then I'm going to have to experience these results. And if I'm experiencing those results, how am I going to be able to help anybody? You know, so there's that way of looking at it as well. So, okay, anyway, so yeah, when applied to to killing, so the basis is another sentient being. The attitude is the wish to avoid having seen its faults. The performance is to put effort into completely abstaining from killing. And then the completion is the physical act of having successfully refrained from it. So it's all really it's like these three, is it? The basis, yeah, the basis, the basis, the attitude, the performance, and the completion. So just like with the native karma of killing, where there's those four: basis, the object, the thing that you're going to be killing, the attitude, which had three parts to it. But anyway, there's the attitude, so that mind kind of component. Then the way of killing, and then the completion being that the sentient being has to have died before you do, right? So you remember that. So here it's to do with like building up from not wanting to that's it, you didn't. Somehow yeah, so what does it say again? The attitude is the wish. Oh, okay, yeah. The basis, yeah, the basis is the other sentient being. It's nothing to do with your way of thinking. Attitude wanting not to kill, then putting some effort into just restraining yourself. And somehow I think when it says the completion is, you know, where you've successfully refrained from it, it's a bit like you've restrained yourself to the point where now that's it. It's like it's clear to you that you're not going to do it. Maybe it's a bit like, you know, you don't want to smoke this cigarette. You kind of, because you can understand the drawbacks, you kind of want to, so you have to put some effort into not smoking it. But then having put enough, once you put enough effort into it, then no, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to. And it's somehow clear. I think it's a bit like that. Makes sense, does it? It does to me anyway. Okay. So one thing that I think is just, I mean, I don't know, but when we were talking about the non-virtuous actions, for the attitude, you had three things, right? What was it? The recognition, the mental affliction, and then what was the other one? No, I've forgotten. Mental affliction, and then somebody, it's gone. The intention, right? Yeah. So there were those three components, but here it doesn't mention anything about three components. It's just the wish not to kill, having seen the drawbacks. So that's interesting. I mean, I think if you were to try to go further and see it in terms of those three, would it work? Okay, so the recognition, you probably would need recognition, wouldn't you? You know, like otherwise, how could you talk about? Because remember, you know, when we talk about the virtue of not killing, it's not just not killing, right? Because we're doing that in our sleep all the time, right? Is it maybe if you roll over and kill a bed bug? But I mean, that's not intentional anyway, is it? So, so it looks like there should be the recognition, correct recognition. Then the mental fiction, so the opposite of mental fiction. That would make sense, wouldn't it? You know, the non-attachment in the sense of the opponent to attachment. And in fact, I seem to remember seeing an explanation where it talks about, in the case of the positive ones, which are the opposite, you know, like the opposite of killing, the positive kind of not killing, you'd have to have non-attachment, non-ignorance, and non-anger, all three present, not just one of the three. I might have seen that somewhere, come to think of it. And then the intention, that kind of makes sense. You know, instead of the intention to kill, the intention not to kill. So it seems like it would be there. But anyway, it's interesting that he doesn't explain it like that. He just explains it as the wish to avoid killing, having seen its faults. So that's what we have here. Then the effects. Okay. The other paths of action should also be understood in this same manner. Okay, so the effects of the virtuous actions. From among the three effects of the virtuous paths of action, the fully ripening result is to be born as a human, a desiring God, or a God of the two upper realms. So you probably know, you know, when it says the two upper realms, it's talking about form and formless realms. Okay. Through the force of small, intermediate, or great virtuous action. So when, yeah, okay, so that's pretty straightforward, isn't it? So when it's a strong virtuous action, it's going to lead to, start off with the weak, it's going to be, you're going to be born as a human. Middling, desire on God. Strong, a God of the two upper realms, which is interesting because kind of thing that's going on in my mind is this, that when you go through the Wheel of Life, 12 links, that kind of thing, it talks then that's where you would find some explanation that to be born in one of the form realms, you definitely have to have achieved one of the form, the corresponding concentration, level of concentration. And just to keep it simple, you would definitely have to have karma abiding to be born in one of those realms. I mean, that's just that wouldn't be enough, but you would definitely have to have karma abiding. Yeah. So I find it a bit strange, because I'd have thought that the best result would come from having a bodhicitta motivation, even if it's not the actual bodhicitta, which means you're not actually a bodhisattva, but what they call effortful bodhicitta requiring effort, where you can generate bodhicitta in your mind by thinking about the reasons. It's not yet kind of arising spontaneously without having to really even think about it. So that's kind of strange. So in other words, what I'm thinking is, what would make the one of the main factors that would make the karma that you're creating, the virtuous karma you're creating, a very powerful one, would be if you've got bodhicitta as the motivation. But then this is saying that because of that bodhicitta motivation, that's going to result in being born in one of the formal formless realms. And yet you haven't got bodhicitta yet. You haven't got the karma abiding yet. I'm not saying nobody amongst us has, but I mean, it should be obvious that you can have that kind of motivation, a very sincere bodhicitta motivation, and not have karma abiding. And yet it seems to be saying that because it's a very powerful karma you've created, if you're doing it with bodhicitta, it's going to result in being born in the form of formless realms, which doesn't seem to make sense at all. So just to show that there are things to think about here, things to sort out. Yeah, I've got no idea. So anyway, yeah. So that's what it says anyway. Of course, the other thing. No, that doesn't work. I was going to say maybe that's one of the reasons why it's important to dedicate. So maybe with the bodhicitta motivation, it becomes very powerful, and that could lead to results, if it's not dedicated properly, to be born in the form of realms. But I'm not sure about that. Anyway, okay, so the general idea is straightforward. The effects of the non-virtuous actions, generally speaking, you need stronger karma to be born in the upper realms. And it is strong karma, if it needs karma abiding and special insight, and it's very strong karma. Then if it doesn't require quite so much positive karma, such strong positive karma to be born as a desire on God, and then even less. It needs even less to be that strong to be born as a human. And yet the best kind of birth anywhere is with the precious human rebirth. Much better than being born as a god of any description. So anyway, but it still gives you a bit of an idea, doesn't it? Stronger the karma, the stronger the result. In the case of the effect concordant with the cause and the dominant or environmental result, these are the opposite of the respective effects from non-virtuous actions. So that's straightforward, isn't it? Now then it starts talking about other categories of actions, other sort of classifications of karma. So this has got 2 points. First of all, it talks about the difference between propelling and completing karma, and then talks about the difference between karma which is definitely going to be experienced and what will not necessarily be experienced. So for the propelling and completing karma, propelling karma is something you definitely will come across when you look at the 12 links, the Wheel of Life, because the propelling karma, I think uniquely refers to karma which is able to act as the cause for you to be born in any of the six realms. Okay, so that's basically the meaning of propelling karma, the karma that you need to be born in one of the six realms. Completing karma means that having been born in one of the six realms, the different things that happen to you are the result of completing karma. And anyway, so that's the general idea. And so what you find out in this this short section is that you could have a very good propelling karma to be born as a human, but then the illness and so on wouldn't be the result of that propelling karma. It wouldn't be the result of any kind of positive karma. It would be the result of destructive karma. So then the completing karma there would be destructive, but also as born as a human, all sorts of good things could happen to you, and that would be the result of positive completing karma. And so likewise, even if you're born in one of the three lower realms, which would be the result of propelling karma, which is destructive, some good things could happen to you, some bad things could happen to you. Like, for example, if you're born as a dog being waited on hand and foot by your owners, you don't have to go out to work. They go out to work and they bring the food home and they serve it to you. You don't even have to make your bed. They make your bed for you. Yeah. Sometimes you have a whole family that serves you. Very nice. But then also, of course, very unpleasant things happen to animals as well. I mean, actually the life of a pet is something quite rare when you look at the animal realm, remembering that it includes fish and insects and maybe even bacteria. Pretty awful. Gosh, see so many things on the YouTube. I was just looking at one recently. Gosh, I mean, you think of like king cobras. It's sort of like, like you imagine coming across a king cobra kind of like rearing it up to getting ready to bite you. But of course, they got no chance against a mongoose. And then there's you got one big snake eating another big snake. They sort of wrestle a bit, and then and then there's is it the boa constrictor or something like that? One of those big ones that's body is as wide as a human body, and it can eat not a huge deer, but maybe a smaller kind of deer all in one go. Okay, so that's the whole thing. They don't chew their food. They just swallow it. And amazingly, they can, if they're one meal like that, they can just about go for a year without another meal. Amazing, isn't it? But anyway, yeah, not very nice talk. Really not very nice talk. Wild animals don't wait for their prey to die before they start eating them. I'm sure I mentioned this before, but anyway, it's one of the things about because the what do you call it? Tibetans quite like vultures, and of course we think, oh, vultures terrible. They just come along and eat carrion carcasses and things like that. But yeah, exactly. They don't go killing. They don't go around killing. They don't kill anybody. They don't kill anything. Their whole life they don't kill. They just eat what's just died naturally or being killed by others. Amazing, really. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, that's that. Okay, anyway, propelling actions for a fortunate rebirth are virtuous actions, whereas propelling karma for rebirth in the lower realms are non-virtuous actions. The completing ones are undetermined, so it varies. However, completing karmas are undetermined. So that should mean, basically, with the completing karmas, you don't know really whether you're going to. Oh, what happened? How strange. The book suddenly closed by itself. No, here we are. There we go. Strange. It's undetermined, meaning that the good completing karma isn't necessarily going to be experienced in a good rebirth, and the bad completing karma isn't necessarily going to be experienced in a bad rebirth. However, even in the fortunate rebirths, so incomplete limbs, minor body parts, or sense faculties, all those being incomplete, hideous looks, short lifespan, multiple illnesses, poverty, and so forth are caused by non-virtue. So that would be non-virtuous completing karma. Also, in the case of animals and hungry ghosts, abundant prosperity is caused by virtue. So there are the four possibilities. You got. Anyway, it's obvious. I might as well read it. Propelled by virtuous propelling action, completed by virtue, or by non-virtuous completing action. So then that which is propelled by a non-virtuous propelling action, propelling karma, and then completed by non-virtuous or virtuous completing action. And I think it's like, for example, being a completing karma isn't something you would know just by looking at the action. You look at the way the result is experienced. So because there are certain actions that are powerful enough to be a propelling karma, but they could instead act as a completing karma for another propelling karma. Do you get the idea? So you can't necessarily tell. Like, for example, they talk about the five what they call the five uninterrupted actions, like killing your mother, killing your father, and so on. So if you've done several of them, then one of them would be the propelling karma, and the others would act as completing karma, making that life even worse, kind of thing. So then the difference between what will definitely be experienced and what will not necessarily be experienced. Karma that will be definitely experienced, karma that won't be definitely experienced. So now here, this could be a bit puzzling. So try to not make it too puzzling. So when it says, okay, I want to make sure it's so it doesn't, in that title, it doesn't actually mention it doesn't mention anything about karma. So anyway, but basically it's talking about karma which is definitely going to be experienced, which isn't. So when they say that karma is definite and the result is never lost and all that, so then what does it mean to say it's not going to be experienced? So I think what you'll find as you're going through this, what makes sense is to understand this expression, definitely experienced, definitely, and the not definitely experienced, is that you're definitely going to experience an unpleasant result, or definitely going to experience a pleasant result. So you could, to put it very simply, if the karma that you've created is actually a neutral one, then it's not going to bring a suffering result or a pleasant result. It's going to bring a neutral result. And his holiness, I think not exactly joking, although it sounds a bit funny. He was saying that probably when we do our our daily practices, sadhanas, if you've got the commitments to do certain practices, most of the time it's just neutral karma, because we just sort of like do it without thinking what we're doing. I know that. Yeah, I know that from experience. I mean, there's sometimes you'll be doing a practice and it's like, you finished because you're on the last page, but you can't actually remember doing it. It happens like that. So that's kind of like neutral in that case. Yeah. So that's one thing. That's one thing. The difference between what will definitely be experienced. So keep in mind, or like mental note, maybe what that means is you're not going to that you will definitely experience either a pleasant or unpleasant result, and what will not necessarily be experienced, meaning something which won't produce either of those results. So we'll bring about a neutral result. That's sort of like what I'm working with at the moment. So let's see if that makes sense now. That which will definitely be experienced is what has been done intentionally and has been accumulated. This is actually quite puzzling, this whole thing. Anyway, I shouldn't have said that much. Just let you find your own way to being puzzled. That which will not necessarily be experienced is that which has been done intentionally but has not been accumulated. So what on earth does that mean? Well, anyway, there's a little bit of explanation. Let's read to the end of this paragraph and this section, and then back up a bit. What has been, so it says the difference between, so first of all, it says you've got done and accumulated, right? So these are the two terms that we're looking at. Done intentionally. So that means they often just say done and accumulate, done, accumulated. Okay. The difference between what has been done and what has been accumulated is as follows. What has been done is an intention or is a performance with body or speech following an intention. So when it's just an intention, then it's been done. But in other words, there was just an intention, but you didn't follow it up with the actual karma. So maybe you had the wish to kill, the intention to kill, but you didn't kill. So that means that it's been done, which is strange, isn't it? But that's what this seems to be saying here. It's been done. Because we would say, well, no, but you didn't do it. So anyway, just bear with. Okay. The difference between what has been done and what has been accumulated is as follows. What has been done is an intention or is a performance with body or speech following an intention. So if you've got the intention, if you've got just the intention, or if you've got the action that was motivated by that intention, then it's been done. Both of those are cases where it's been done. Okay. Then it says, what has been accumulated are any actions apart from the 10, those done in a dream and so forth. So there's a list of 10 things, and I'm going to go through those because it's not mentioned here, but it is mentioned in the Lamrim Chenmo. So what it's saying is accumulated. The action has been accumulated unless it's one of those 10. So in other words, killing in a dream means that you don't get, hasn't been accumulated. So that's just one point we can state clearly. What has been accumulated are any actions apart from the 10. If it's one of the 10, it hasn't been accumulated. If it's not one of the 10, it has been accumulated. So this is a lot of for some of you, maybe lots of new ideas all at once. And I find it difficult to kind of like juggle all of this together. But, like sentence by sentence, it's kind of quite clear. What has been accumulated is any action apart from the 10. If it's any of the 10, it's not accumulated. Okay. Conversely, what has been accumulated are the 10, what has not been accumulated are the 10 types such as those done in dream. That which will definitely be experienced has 3 categories, so that we can look at that later, actually. Okay, so here are the 10. Okay, so I'll say them slowly in case you're taking notes. So the first of the 10 is done in a dream. So killing in a dream, right? Just thinking in terms of killing or whatever, you know, killing in a dream. Then masheper, without knowing, right? Then the third one is not, so unintentionally. Yeah, in actually in Geshe-Zopa's book, it says unconsciously, but in other texts in the English, it will say unintentionally. I think unintentionally is a bit better, because otherwise unconsciously it'd be difficult to distinguish between unknowingly and unconsciously, wouldn't it? You know, you did it without knowing that you did it. You did it without being conscious that you did it. What's the difference? So unintentionally, though, unknowingly and unintentionally, that's a bit different, because you could do it unintentionally and you look back, oh goodness, I just trod on that lizard or whatever, you know. But the unknowingly means you just didn't didn't know about it. And the reason why there's we want to make a distinction between those two actually is, you might be thinking to yourself, well, maybe I've done all sorts of negative karmas in this life, even let alone past lives. So what about those? Do they count or not, or what? You know? No, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. No, that would only work where it was, you know, in this lifetime. Okay, not that you've forgotten, because those ones you might have, in past lives, you might have known that you did it. You might have even done it knowingly, but because of its past lives, so you don't remember it. But in this life, okay, so things that you've done and you didn't know that you did, you didn't even know that you were doing it. Not that you've forgotten, but you didn't know that you did it. You didn't even know that you did it. Whereas with the third one, unintentionally, it means you know that you did it, but you had no intention to do it at all, right? Then the fourth one means without intensity and not continuously. So this without intensity would mean, if you want to get more detail, again go to Geshe-Zopa's commentary, but generally speaking, done without intensity means like you don't have like any kind of like strong attachment or anger or ignorance, and maybe actually no attachment or ignorance at all. You just sort of like you just did it. Maybe that would be like, you know, you see the mosquito and you just brush it off. And well, there are certain insects, I mean, and a mosquito might be able to survive that, but there are certain insects, you know, like all you got to do is just like brush it off and it's squashed, it's dead, kind of thing. And nor continuously. So continuously, that could mean either of two things. Generally speaking, continuously means like you're doing it all the time, but another meaning for continuously can be you've been thinking of doing it for a while, and you didn't. It's not like sometimes you're thinking I might do this, Then sometimes you think, no, maybe I shouldn't do it. Then sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to do it, and then you change your mind. So chopping and change your mind. Then that would mean it's not continuous, right? So anyway, then so that's the fourth one, without intensity and without and not being continuous either, not being continuous. So that's the fourth one. The fifth one, mistakenly. Maybe you didn't even realize that it was that it was an insect, or that it was an animal of some kind, you know. So anyway, mistakenly. Then the sixth one, through forgetfulness, forgetfully. And I think that one example of this could be, so if you've got I don't know, like you've got, let's say you got a hamster in a cage, right? So you have to feed it, right? There's no way for it to live unless you feed it. I mean, cats can go out and kill. In fact, they do. You know, you can feed them as much as you like. They're still going to go out and kill, right? But if you've got a hamster inside of a cage, it's going to live when you feed it. And so, interestingly, you could kill it by not feeding it. In other words, you can kill it by not doing anything. You don't do anything at all, it's going to die. But what about when you just forget? I mean, it might be that you're pet sitting and you forgot that actually there was a hamster that needed to be fed, to be fed. So anyway, by forgetfully. Then the seventh one is without wanting to, unwillingly. Unwillingly, not wanting to. So you've been somehow forced to do something that you didn't want to do. It could have been a threat to you, to your life. It could have been a threat to your family's life, or whatever, you really didn't want to, but you did. So, I mean, you can always say, well, if you really didn't want to, you shouldn't have done it. It's true. Just let them, shoot you in the head, kill your family or whatever, But we know what this means, right? It's like you feel like you've got to do it, but you really don't want to do it, like that. Then something which is neutral, an action which is neutral. In other words, they're just by doing that. I mean, it'd be all sorts of, like, even just, I don't know, just walking. I mean, it's just, there's nothing sort of moral or immoral about that, right? Nothing particularly destructive or constructive about that in and of itself, right? So anyway, something which is ethically neutral. Then the ninth one is actions which are, the way that it's put in Geshe-Zopa's book is probably just right, actually, cleared away by regret. So about doing, we would think of like killing with a feeling of regret. So that would maybe be like, that would maybe come under the heading of without wanting to, the seventh one. So this is more to do with, you've done it and immediately you regret it. And regret in the sense of, we talk about the four opponent powers. One of them is regret, right? The power of regret. So regret for what you've done, like a person would feel regret about having eaten eaten poisonous food. They ate the food. Now they realize that it was poisonous, and so how they feel about that, not feeling guilty, as we usually say, feeling regret, thinking that was a mistake, that I really shouldn't have done that. It would have been much better if I hadn't done that. So cleared out by regret. And then those, what does it say, is the yes, which has been actions which have been cleared cleared away or cleared up by applying the antidote. So, yeah, like Vajrasattva, recitation, and so on, that kind of thing. Okay. 35 Buddhas. Well, those both include regret already, but anyway, that's the distinction is made here. Maybe if we think about it. Yeah, I've got in my notes here. I don't know if it's just my notes or from an explanation. The first one is okay, you've done the thing, and then you do the thing one time, and then you regret it. Then the antidote would be where you, what you call it, make the firm determination not to do it again. So anyway, in that case, the action would become one where it would be, what do you call it? What was the expression here? Not accumulated. Difference between what has been done and what has been accumulated. What has been accumulated are any actions apart from the 10. So you did in any of those 10 cases, killing in any of those 10 cases, you haven't accumulated. And to be a result, to be a karma where you are going to definitely experience the result. And here, obviously, the emphasis is on negative karma, actually, right? It has to have both been done and it has to have been accumulated. If any of these 10 apply, it hasn't been accumulated, so therefore it's not both done and accumulated. Therefore, it's a karma where the result isn't definitely going to be experienced. You know, maybe even to simplify things, you're not definitely going to get the ripening result. That would make it simple to understand, wouldn't it? Okay. So that's actually, in a way, the answer to a lot of questions, isn't it? Seeing that list. You know, so and it'll help us, and it'll help people that, you know, maybe there are people who are really trying to practice karma, but they haven't learned these things. So, you know, somebody comes up to you and says, you know, I did this, but you can see from the way they explained it, actually, it comes under this list of 10. Okay, so it seems like, yes, Shana.
So what was the 10th one?
The 10th one is cleared up by the antidote. That's what it's called.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.
So it's interesting. Okay. Anyways, it's interesting to think about this. So killing in a dream. Interesting, isn't it? So you killed in a dream. Now, if you killed, suppose you had a dream where you killed your father, for example. You can imagine waking up and feeling really bad about that, right? You can imagine that. It so happens, actually, I can't remember if it was from an alarm or whatever the source was, but I came across the idea that killing somebody in your dream can be just symbolic of overcoming attachment to them. So, you know, sometimes it's like that in dreams, isn't it? But the point is, if you kill somebody in a dream, then you don't get the karma of killing, to put it simply. But now, what if you dream of killing a person and then you sort of feel really happy about it? It's like, you know, I know it was just a dream, but it was so good. It would have been so good if they'd been real, that kind of thing. I mean, that doesn't help much, does it? So I'm not sure, but it still wouldn't. But you still wouldn't get the karma of killing. But I don't know. I think, like, if you were to wake up and in some sense rejoice. Likewise, you know, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and so on. then you're building up some destructive imprints, aren't you? Some destructive tendencies. So, you know, that's not good, is it? Anyway, I think that we can leave that there. We've got 10 minutes left, and I think, let's see. Let's keep going anyway. Let's keep going. Where are we? Okay, so there was this thing about the last part of that section. So in my book, page 138, this last paragraph in that section, that which will definitely be experienced has three categories based on when the effect will be experienced. That which will be experienced as a visible phenomenon. So there's three, sorry. That which will be experienced as a visible phenomenon. There's a long name for it, isn't it? But anyway, that's what it's called. Then the karma whose action will be experienced in the next life, and the karma whose experience will be experienced in some other life. So that which will definitely be experienced has three categories based on when the effect will be experienced. That which will be experienced as a visible phenomenon, that's the title. What does it refer to? An action whose effect will be experienced in this life. They often give examples like earlier on in life being, you know, offering service, being polite and respectful and so on to your parents. Good things happening towards the end of your life, and conversely, you know, being very bad to your parents. Then earlier on in your life, bad things happening later on in life. Then that which will be experienced after taking rebirth is, so the very next life, in other words, the very next life after the karma has been done. That's an action whose effect will be experienced in the next life. And that which will be experienced at another time is that which will be experienced in the life after that or beyond. So not in the very next life, but the next, or the one after that, or the one after that, or one after that. And I think most karma would be that type of karma. Okay? Everybody okay? Keep going a bit. Okay, and then we've got complete contemplating karma and its effects in particular. Through abandoning the 10 non-virtues, you do indeed. So this is actually talking about what they call the 8 fully ripened qualities, which is sometimes a little bit controversial, as we will see if you haven't read it already. Through abandoning the 10 non-virtues, you do indeed obtain a good rebirth, but were you to achieve a fully qualified basis for accomplishing omniscience, Buddhahood, you'd be able to cover ground in your meditations on the path in an unparalleled manner. So we're talking about not just having a good birth in the next life, in the sense of, you know, one of the happy realms, but one which has certain features that are going to make it much easier for you to practice much more powerfully. So there's two things. So yeah, therefore you should try to achieve such life. There's 2 points: the fully ripened qualities and their functions, and the causes of those fully ripened result. Okay, so the first has 8 points. So excellent lifespan, so long life, excellent complexion. The word katok, interesting. It's sometimes a word that refers to caste. So how would that apply in our world? I know, maybe being born in the top 1% or being born in the bottom 99%. I don't know, maybe it's like that. Excellent lineage, excellent power, respected words, renowned for being powerful, male birth and strength. So Geshe-Soba, when he was explaining that one, he says, now here's one you're not going to like. But we can talk about it anyway. So excellent lifespan. The first is to have a long life. So that's what it means. Propelled by an earlier propelling action and to live accordingly. So not just that you've created the cause to have a long life, but you actually have a long life. On this basis, you undertake actions for the purpose of yourself and others, accumulating a lot of virtue over a long period of time. So obvious benefits. No need to talk about that. The second is to have a good complexion and attractive physical form. But actually, I think it mentions... no, I can't find... yeah, even though that word katok, color, in some of the scriptures, it actually does refer to caste. Here, with the explanation of this one, which he's translated as an excellent complexion, not excellent color, it actually says color and shape. And it does talk about it in terms of, well, anyway, you'll see, it's the appearance. The second is to have a good complexion and attractive physical form, well proportioned with complete sense powers. Owing to this, disciples gather just delighted to see you and listen to your words. They say that Lama Atisha was extremely handsome, very handsome. And so somebody who, I mean, it would be, if you've got the kind of person, if you've got kind of charisma and like this very beautiful appearance and you've got nothing to say, then it's not so useful, is it? But if you've got if you've got like Lama Atisha, who's all of these insights and this knowledge, you really have something to give. So if you draw people towards you, people are drawn towards you just naturally because they just can't get enough of, just seeing you because you just look so amazing. I mean, that would be useful, wouldn't it? Although I'd have thought maybe they could be distracted by your appearance. It's like, looking at you and not really listening to you. I don't know. But anyway, you get the idea. Owing to this, disciples gather just delighted to see you, and then they listen to your words. So that's important to finish, to qualify that with, and they listen to you. They gather around and they listen. Then there's excellent lineage. Okay, so a rig. The third is to be born into an exalted family that is well known and respected by the world. Owing to this, your commands are accomplished and not transgressed. And there's some truth in that, isn't it? We've got, I mean, if you're born into a certain family, for better or worse, people tend to, take you seriously, right? Imagine you're, one of the Kennedys. It's like, oh, wow, he's one of the Kennedys. That kind of thing. So owing to this, your commands are accomplished and not transgressed. Excellent power. The fourth is to have great wealth, many friends and numerous helpers. Owing to this, you gather many beings around you and bring them to spiritual maturity. So yeah, having wealth. So, you can just imagine, so you've really got something to teach. You know how to lead people. One of the things that you would want to do is to provide people who are really serious about practicing and learning with the means to do it. So, if you've got power and control and wealth and so on, you can provide that for people. Respected words. The fifth is to not deceive others through your verbal or physical actions, so they trust your words. This almost seems to be putting the cause and the result together, doesn't it? But anyway, you're maybe, I don't know, anyway, it says Tsumba, perfect pure words is maybe better, pure. It might end up with respect, your words being respected, but it actually says pure words, and I think that makes more sense. So the result would be having pure words, which means you don't deceive others through your verbal or physical actions. Because you don't deceive them in any way, they trust you. And it is like that, isn't it? There are some people you just know. I mean, all of your experience of them is they never lie. They're not always they might not always be very nice, because sometimes, to be truthful isn't very nice. But you know that they've never lied to you. Never lied to you, never. Then you just tend to, you want to know what they think. You tend to listen to them. You tend to trust them. So due to this, you gather sentient beings with the 4 ways of gathering. So this is linked with the 4 means of gathering, which comes later in the text. After the 6 perfections, there's the 4 ways of gathering. 6 perfections which mature your own mind, and then the 4 means of gathering, which are for maturing, leading others. Yeah. So yeah, so anyway, what that's all about is basically drawing people towards you so that you can guide them on the path, and then actually guiding them on the path, and then being an inspiration to yourself by practicing what you're teaching them, instead of anyway being hypocritical. So if you have pure words where you never deceive, you never trick people, then that's going to be very helpful in that kind of activity, isn't it? Gathering sentient beings around you. Then let's let's just get to the end of this page, the eighth one. Then renowned for being powerful, the 6 is to possess excellent qualities such as joyously striving, in generosity, and so forth, so that you become an object of veneration of great beings. Owing to this, they help you with all activities. So the way that you are leading your life, other powerful people take note, and they sort of they help you, they support you, they spread the good word about, they spread your they spread your reputation. And they acknowledge your deeds and quickly heed your instructions, so that they're willing to help. Then the male birth. Okay, skip that one. The 7th is to be born a male, which allows you to become a receptacle for all excellent qualities. So that obviously doesn't mean that you would have to be a male to be a receptacle for all excellent qualities. Then with the aspiration and effort, receptacle for increasing wisdom. You're not afraid to be in crowd, and nothing prevents you from traveling together with anyone else or from living in seclusion. So there's all sorts of things there's all sorts of discussion we could have here. Anybody who thinks that, so Buddha was, had something against women and sexist, then it's just totally ridiculous. I'm sorry. That was totally ridiculous. I mean, that means basically you think Buddha wasn't Buddha. Okay, so you have to think about it. Is this teaching that applied, or maybe applied more at the time of the Buddha, at the time of Lama Tsongkhapa, when this text was being written? It seems to me that, it's really terrible. It's really terrible. The way that, it's obvious that that the fight isn't over, is it, for equality? Is it? No. So we know that. And usually a fight for rights, it has to be followed up by a fight to retain the rights. Otherwise, all the rights gradually get gradually whittled away. So anyway, it's there's just anyway. I don't really need to say anything more. I mean, we all know. I think we understand this, don't we? Right? Do we? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think I think it really is terrible, because the disadvantage, the main disadvantage of being a woman is you have to deal with men. Is the way you get treated by men. It's terrible, isn't it? It's really terrible. Anyway. Then the strength. The eighth is to be naturally healthy and free of adversity. That's the way I saw it. Someone was hale and hearty. So, and to have a great enthusiasm owing to the great present conditions in your life through the power of previous actions. Owing to that, you do not get overwhelmed by whatever goals you or others may have, and in reliance upon intense diligence, you attain the power of fine investigation, whereby clairvoyance will quickly develop. Not all this is so obvious, but anyway, I think the basic point is being strong and healthy, and cheerful. It's really useful. I've noticed that in my family, my mum, just things don't bother her. I mean, they might bother her a bit, but they tend not to bother her for long. You know, she's really not in very good health, but you know, she's cheerful, she's happy enough. And my brother tends to be like that as well, but not, just doesn't let things get to him. Doesn't worry about things. So, and that's useful, you know, to be, you could say, you know, just to be optimistic, a person who's optimistic and looking on the bright side and that kind of thing. It's very helpful, very useful. Anyway, so let's stop there then. Okay.
Steve, I just have a quick question. Is this the Lama Zopa commentary you're talking about when you're referencing?
Geshe Zopa.
Yeah, Geshe Zopa. Is that the one you're using when you're referencing?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are several volumes, right? So it should be the second one, which says Karma.
It's the Karma. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure. Thanks.
Yeah, those books, I think there's 5 of them now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think third one is the Bodhisattva practices. Then the 4th would be on karma writing. The 5th would be on special insight. And those, they're phenomenal. They're very, very useful. Very useful. But I mean, like if you've got all 5 of them, it's kind of like it comes to a stack that high. Or that wide. Very good. Very good. Okay. Okay. So again, not next week because of my nephew's funeral. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all the sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I have promised to pray, and all those whose names have been given to me. May be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living and those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. So if we do the 2, anyway, the long life prayer and then the quick return prayer, right? So up the long life prayer, the one that you were on, that one. That's the one. That's it. Thank you. No, not that one. That one. That's the one. Sorry about that. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Then the long life prayer, quick return prayer, sorry. Keep going, keep going. That's the one, thank you. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, thanks. And see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Hey, I put a link in the chat for the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. So
Oh, thank you.
if anybody wants to click real quick on that before we leave, you can download it. It's from Lama Yeshe's archive, so it's bona fide.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry
Okay,
about
good.
your nephew, Venerable Steve.
Yeah.
Say that again?
Sorry about your nephew.
Yeah, it's terrible, really.
It's very sad.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is very sad. Yeah, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay.
You
Take some
stay
practice,
safe.
Steve.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Stay safe.